אוקיי, אני הופך אותך להוסט. זהו, אתה יכול להפעיל את המצלמה והמצגת.
share screen, אוקיי. כן, אוקיי. אוקיי, רגע. אוקיי. התחלנו, רואים אותי או שומעים אותי?
שומעים אותך אבל לא רואים אותך, אתה צריך להדליק את המצלמה.
אוקיי. You cannot speak because אתה סגרתי את זה כנראה.
את מה סגרתי?
את המצלמה שלי שם.
אני לא סגרתי.
נעשה עוד פעם. כתוב שלי, you can't start your video because the host has disabled it.
אוקיי, אז תשמע, אז טיפה מסורבל מה שנעשה עכשיו, אבל נעשה את זה דקה. תפתח את ה-participants.
אוקיי, איפה בקטן?
למטה, אתה רואה participant?
כן.
יופי. פתחת?
כן.
יש לך פאנליסט?
כן. הראשון, כן.
פאנליסט?
כן.
תעמוד על ההוואוי שלא כתוב עליו הוסט.
אוקיי, מי?
כן.
מי?
שם יש לך את המצלמה?
כן.
אוקיי, אז עכשיו תלחץ על הכפתור ה-unmute, הוא שואל אותך, לא, ליד ה-unmute, יש more?
לא, יש invite.
לא, תסתכל, בפאנליסט יש ראשית ירושלים, הוואוי, ועוד הוואוי, נכון?
נכון, נכון. יש הראשון זה מי, השני זה host.
ויש עוד אחד.
ראשית ירושלים.
לא, יש ראשית אחד.
כן, ושני הוואוי.
יופי, אז יש הוואוי אחד שכתוב עליו הוסט, או מי,
נכון.
כן, הוסט, והוואוי השני לא כתוב עליו כלום. תלחץ על הכפתור על more.
אין more.
מה יש?
רגע אחד. יש אחד שכתוב מי, שכתוב שהווידאו סגור, עם מיקרופון, זה זה.
תלחץ על more. תיגע בשורה, אז יהיה לך more.
לא, כתוב rename. מה שכתוב.
תעמוד על ראשית ירושלים.
אוקיי, כן.
יש לך more?
לא. זה כתוב צ'אטים, אני לא יודע למה צ'אטים.
רגע, אתה לחצת על הפרטיסיפנט?
כן, כן, על פרטיסיפנט, 29 פרטיסיפנטס.
יופי, אתה עכשיו על הפאנליסט?
כן, 3 פאנליסט.
יופי, יש ראשית ירושלים?
כן.
תיגע בשורה של ראשית ירושלים.
נגעתי.
יש מיוט ומור?
לא.
מה יש?
יש צ'אט, מעביר אותי לצ'אט, טייפ הצ'אט, זה הכל. יאללה, לא צריכים לראות אותי. אני אדבר.
אוקיי.
אין לי בעיה עם זה, אוקיי?
אז אנחנו מתנצלים על האיחור, תגיד את זה באנגלית, ויאללה, תתחיל.
Okay, hi. Good evening, everybody. Hi, it's Nathan Adler. You're not gonna get a picture of me, so we're just gonna flow through. Okay, I'm gonna talk tonight about Nebi Samuel. Nebi Samuel and the connection is, how is Samuel the prophet connected to the site? Is the Samuel the prophet buried there or not? And we're gonna start, this is a picture of if you're going on the road, you'll see a sign saying, Kever, the tomb of the prophet Samuel. We're wondering if that is. Okay, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. It's right outside the city of Jerusalem. It's on the way from Jerusalem going to the north. You actually passed Ramot. I live in Ramot. That's why my connection is to Nebi Samuel. I've been taking people there many, many times. I've been living in Ramot since 1984, and I have guests that would come to us for Shabbat for the weekend, and we would always. And they arrived, my wife was preparing at the last minutes for Shabbat. I'd take them to Nebi Samuel, and it became a joke. Okay, here we go. Nebi Samuel is the gate to Jerusalem. It's the highest point in the area. It's about 900 meters above sea level. By comparison, the Temple Mount is about 740. That's 160 meters different. We're talking about 500 feet difference. It's called a horse. The geological term is a horse. It's a hill that overlooks the surroundings. Just like Masada. If you go to Masada, you notice all of a sudden it's standing alone. Or Mount Tabor over the Israel Valley. It stands all alone. Okay, it's a vantage point. From the Nebi Samuel, you can easily see Jerusalem to the south, southeast, the sea to the west, Ramallah to the north, Herodian in the past, Herodian in the south. In the past, you could actually see the Carmel, you could see Haifa. The Crusaders called it the Hill of Joy. Why was it called the Hill of Joy? Imagine the Crusaders in 1099, when they were coming to Israel, their mission was to reach Jerusalem. And they haven't seen Jerusalem. They've been killing people in Europe, but that's not relevant. They came into Israel. They reached Nebi Samuel, and all of a sudden they could see Jerusalem. They called it the Hill of Joy. Finally, they could see Jerusalem from there. The British in 1917, during World War I, they called it, there was a war between the allies of Britain, were the one who conquered Israel, conquered Palestine, against the Turks. During World War I, they called it the key to conquering Jerusalem. Nebi Samuel was a strategic battlefield throughout history. Joshua, the Battle of Givon, King David's troops versus Saul's son at Givon. Givon is right next to it, right below. We're going to see a picture of it in a moment. The Maccabees, who fought against the Greeks, the Romans, the Crusaders, World War I, 1948, there was a real battle on Nebi Samuel, which Israel did not conquer. And in 1967, it was conquered. Jordanian camp, there was a Jordanian army camp from 1948 to 1967. In the late 80s, when we used to go visit Nebi Samuel, we would walk through the trenches. The Jordanian trenches still existed. From those trenches, they used to shoot to the entrance of Jerusalem. And I had a neighbor who used to live right in Givat Shaul, right at the entrance to Jerusalem. And he remembers that in 1948, he would run to the bomb shelters because they were shooting mortars. And he was almost killed there. On the Roman road, now not 443, it's the gateway going from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now we're going to go to the site. This is what it looks like. If you come into the site, we're going to see staircase. It would take you up to the roof. And this is the view. This is the view of pictures I took by myself, pictures I took from the roof. And here we're looking to the north. And right in front of us in the foreground, you see biblical Givon. Givon, which is the story of Joshua, the fight with Joshua, says that the sun stood at Givon. That's Givon. Later on, Givon was where the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was at the end. And Solomon, the night before he went to start the first temple, he went to Givon, go to the Mishkan, go to the tabernacle, and he had his dream, the dream asking for wisdom. Further on, in the distance, you can see where Ramallah is. That's going to the north. This is looking towards Jerusalem. And here in the distance, you could actually see the three towers on the Mount of Olives. The first one to the left is Mount Scopus, Hebrew University. The second one is Augusta Victoria. And the third one is the Church of Ascension. Church of Ascension is on Mount of Olives. It's right opposite the Temple Mount. You can't see the Temple Mount here because the Temple Mount is in the valley. It's lower than Mount of Olives. Mount of Olives is about 810 in meters in height. So we're talking about 80 or 90 meters above. Nebi Samuel was higher than that. In the distance, you really can't see in this picture, but in the distance in the haze, you can actually see Jordan from here. And this is facing the entrance to Jerusalem. In the foreground, you see the community where I live, remote. In the distance, you can see the road, the entrance to Jerusalem. You can see all the towers, the largest tower right there, and the second one to the left. Coming in for the right is where the Crown Plaza Hotel is. That's going that, and this is going down. This is looking west. On the left part, you have New Givon and Givat Zev, and in the distance, you can actually see almost down to the shoreline. In other words, the Nebi Samuel is really the gateway to Jerusalem. It separates going from the concept of coming from the sea up to Jerusalem, the gateway. And people asking questions. We'll do questions later on. The archaeological finds at Nebi Samuel. We're going to go around the corner. First, we're going to talk about what the hill is like, the archaeological finds. Then we're going to look at the site, see what they found at the site. And then we're going to talk about the biblical concept of Nebi Samuel as being the grave of Shmuel and Nevi or not. The archaeological finds at Nebi Samuel. There hasn't been an archaeological dig below the church mosque, which is the peak of the hill. Nothing has been found from Samuel's period. We're talking about Samuel is before King David. King David is about 3,000 years ago. So we're talking about, like say, 3,100 years ago approximately. The first temple period, they found some shards, ceramic shards, and the Melech seals, which will go back to about 2,700 years old. They found things from the Persian period. The Persian period is the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, and they had seals which had they say on them Yahud, which means that's the Persian period. That's when the beginning of the Persian Ezra and Nehemiah. Southeast corner of the site, they found a well-preserved area from the second temple, from the 2nd century BC, with a central street 55 meters long. You'll see it in a minute, and large buildings. It appears the area was abandoned before the Roman period, from 63 before the Common Era. They found in the Byzantine period, there was a monastery built in Samuel's honor. Byzantine period, we're talking about, I guess, 1,700 years ago, 1,600 years ago, 4th to 5th century, 6th century. Many coins were found from the 5th and 6th century, some from North Africa. In other words, already at the time in the Byzantine period, in other words, from the 4th century on, I guess, they found there's evidence of being a monastery on Nebi Samuel, with a name relating to Shmuel. Near Samuel is what it's called. In the early Arab period, there were ovens for ceramics. 2 ovens are complete. Many seals with Dear Shmuel, the monastery of Shmuel on them, thought to be from the 8th century. The Crusader period, Crusaders made a church at the peak, a fortress, a pilgrim's inn, many other things. The Mamluk period, the church and inn are abandoned. And okay, this is what it looks like looking in from the southeast. In the foreground, you actually see in the foreground, you can see some of the remains from the Hashmonaim from the 2nd century BCE period. In the background, you see the mosque and the church. This is the entrance from the east, going into the mosque, into the church. This is what it looks like inside. You could see from the arches, it looks like it was a church from the Crusader period, and they made a mihrab on the southern wall to direct the prayer towards Mecca. There's an upper tomb. Upper tomb is where the Muslims pray, and then you can actually see that's in the bottom. You can see the rugs that they have there. And I was there on a Friday, and they come out from there, and below that is the lower tomb. And the lower tomb, you can notice on this picture of right below, you walk down the staircase to the tomb. We're going to go down to the tomb in a second. You can actually see on your right, you see some architectural, some stones from the Crusader period. And then there's written in Hebrew, it says Shnat Goral. Shnat Goral. The Goral, Dr. El Maron, and below that you see Eliyahu Shemesh. We don't know what that means. Dr. El Maron says that he refers to 1524, right after the fall of the Byzantine Empire, and right after the fall, after the fall overall of the Byzantine Empire, and after the fall of the Mamluks, and perhaps there was a feeling that the Messiah was going to come when the Ottoman Turks came in, and maybe that's why it says Hagoral over there. This is the tomb in the base. Men and women are separate. The 28th of Iyar, on your right, you see the tomb. On the left is a ark for the Torah. 28th of Iyar, there's a celebration like a Hilulah, honoring the death date of Shmuel and Nebi. It's interesting to note that the 28th of Iyar is also the day that's Jerusalem Day. That's the day that the Temple Mount, the old city of Jerusalem, was retaken, and it's also the date of Rav Kook into the Holy Land. It's noted on his grave site. This is what it looks like outside. This is a street from the Second Temple period. This is a house from the Second Temple period. This is the Crusader Wall. The Crusaders were talking about the 11th, 12th century. This is the Crusader, looks like the Pilgrim Hall, Crusader Hall. You can imagine a long table there where the Crusaders would be eating. That was the last stop before reaching Jerusalem. Okay. This is the original entrance from the west. This is, and now below the entrance, they were preparing a moat. This is looking in from the west again. You're looking down further down, and right in the foreground, there's remains of a preparation of a moat, and it's really spectacular. So all of a sudden, you can see how they were quarrying the stones. This is right below in other words, we go back to the other picture, you can actually see some of the stones with like a partition there right in the middle, and that's what we're talking about. In other words, right over here, you can see it's coming up like that. That's the moat. They're preparing the moat. They didn't finish it. This is what it looks like. And you can get a feeling of how they actually quarried stone in those days. Okay, a dry moat, never finished. This is on the northern side, a large area, flat area. Who flattened it? The question is, who flattened the hill? There's a problem. You can see how the stone is quarried, flattened it out. The question is who flattened the stone. Now, the difficulty archaeologically, you cannot identify from the stone unless there's a special type of chiseling. You can't from the stones. You have no ceramic shards. You have no coins. You can't identify who actually chiseled the stone. So was it Crusaders about 800 years ago? Some archaeologists say it was to make a parade ground for their horses, or maybe it was a flat area for the last stop of the tabernacle of the Mishkan before the first temple was built, because the Givon is right onto the right. It's right below Nebi Samuel. Maybe it was before that. Maybe this is Mitzpah. This was a traditional prayer area during the time of Shmuel and Nebi, when he went to pray before fighting the Plishtim. Okay, this is part of the Crusader stable. They actually chiseled out. This is for their horses. In the area, there's also burial cave, 2 burial caves. This is like a second century. This is a end of the Second Temple period, a burial cave. We have like a cave inside, and you'd have like kuchim inside. Below that, there's a natural spring on the bottom. There's water there all year long. It's named after Hannah, who was Shmuel's mother. So they named it their silent prayer. This is what it looks like. Okay, now in the Bible, now we're going to go and talk about, was Shmuel and Nebi buried in Nebi Samuel? Now in the Tanakh, it tells us that they buried him in his house in Ramah. In Ramah. Now the question is, Nebi Samuel is Ramah or not? Now Nebi Samuel is an important hill. It's clear that it had some importance. It had to have some importance during the Bible period, but it's not called Ramah. Now, a criteria, how do you determine, how do the researchers determine if an area fits, if a name of an area fits the name in the Bible? So, number one, if they find something referring directly to the biblical name, just as like they found in Shiloh, or maybe if the name is similar to a name stated in the Bible, like El-Jib is the name for Givon, or they were able to relate it to Givon. Aram is similar to Ramah. There's a hill to the north of Jerusalem called Aram that's similar to Ramah. Then they compare it to the description of the Bible. Is the description in the Bible similar to the current site? For example, Aram is on a hill, and Ramah means like a plateau, a height of a plateau. So that fits. Archaeological finding, that fits for Ramah, doesn't fit for Nebi Samuel. Perhaps if they have to find archaeological findings that are similar to the description in the Bible. For example, Givon has been identified to be El-Jib because, number one, the name is similar, and number two, the archaeological findings there are similar to the description in the Bible, because there was a pool in Givon, and there's actually a deep well there, which is could be the pool. So is Ramah in the Bible, which is referred to as the burial place of Shmuel and Nebi, is that Nebi Samuel? It's on a hill, but Nebi Samuel doesn't sound at all like the original name Ramah. And then if not, does Nebi Samuel relate to how does it relate to Shmuel and Nebi? There's a site called Aram, which researchers have said that is Ramah and not Nebi Samuel. So that brings us to a problem. Number one, if Aram is Ramah, then what is Nebi Samuel? And number two, Nebi Samuel has related to the name Shmuel. So what could it be? What could it be? Okay, if Shmuel, now perhaps many researchers have come to say perhaps it is Mitzpah. And how does Mitzpah relate to Shmuel? It says that Shmuel governed the people at 3 sites: Ramah, Mitzpah, and Gilgal. 3 sites, and Mitzpah means an overlook, a viewpoint. Interesting to note that Nebi Samuel is clearly a viewpoint. So it makes sense in that concept to relate to Mitzpah to Nebi Samuel. Before significant battle against the Plishtim, Shmuel gathered the nation in Mitzpah to pray to God. The first coronation, the coronation of Shaul as a king, was in Mitzpah. The biblical Givat Shaul, which we say is where his palace was, is only about 5 kilometers to the east. There are other biblical references to Mitzpah that might be relevant. Number one, the tribes, the 10 tribes met at Mitzpah before the battle against Binyamin. There was a wall built separating the kingdom of Judah from the kingdom of Israel at the time of Asa and Baasha, the respective kings, at Mitzpah. Gedaliah, at the end of the first temple period, right after the destruction of the temple, the Babylonians appointed a man called Gedaliah to be their representative. And he was killed, Tzom Gedaliah, the fast of Gedaliah, he was killed in Mitzpah. The beginning of the Second Temple period, a group came from Mitzpah to help Nehemiah build his wall. And it says there that it was right near Givon to help build the wall. So now we have someone relating Mitzpah to Givon, saying they're nearby. So maybe that's what we're talking about right over here. That's in Nehemiah 3. So maybe that fits. So now we have a connection of Mitzpah to Givon. Yudah Maccabee, in the book of Maccabees, he relates to a place, and he says that he went to Mitzpah, the traditional place of prayer, which was opposite Jerusalem. Now that seems to fit exactly to Nebi Samuel. So maybe we could say that Nebi Samuel is Mitzpah. And here, this is what we're talking about. These are I want to bring it to Samuel called the people unto God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is what we talked about. And also the concept of, Nehemiah. The book of the Maccabees, it goes like this. Judah led his army a short distance from Jerusalem to the town of Mitzpah, which had been a place of worship. This is a fascinating story. He was going to fight against the Greeks. And then what Judah did was he obeyed the law of Moses, and he sent home. He went and asked, has anyone just got married? Is anyone either building a house or ready to get, or just simply afraid? And he would send those people home. He sent those people home, just like it tells us in the Bible. And he wrote, it says in the back of Maccabees, it says, it's better to die in battle than to watch our country and temple crumble. Anyway, so that relates us, Nebi Samuel, to Mitzpah. Now let's get back to the concept, the question. Okay, so now we could say perhaps it's Mitzpah, but we haven't related to why the tradition comes and tells us that Shmuel and Nevi was buried in Nebi Samuel. That's where we come. If Nebi Samuel is on what basis tradition that Shmuel is buried at Nebi Samuel? Number one, there was the Byzantine monastery, and they called it Dir Shmuel, meaning it relates it to Shmuel and Nevi. There's a story Hieronymus lived in Bethlehem, wrote that in the season 406, ordered that Samuel's bones would be moved to Turkey. And then it doesn't say where he originally buried. A later report says that the bones were moved from Turkey from Kalkedon to Istanbul. Later on, there's a story, Benjamin from Tudela reported in 1171, that Samuel's bones were found by the Christians in Ramla and moved them from there to Shein Shmuel, moved them to Nebi Samuel. And when the Christians captured Ramla, now they think that Ramla was Ramah, which they thought was Ramah. From the Arabs, they found his grave by a Jewish synagogue, and they moved it to Shiloh. They were referring not to Shiloh. They were mixed up in the concepts. They built a large platform. They called it Shein Shmuel of Shiloh to this day. They were talking about Nebi Samuel. So according to this, we can say perhaps that the bones, Shmuel's bones, we don't know how they got from Istanbul to Ramla, or maybe they weren't in Ramla, who knows? Or maybe they weren't in Istanbul, we don't know, but that they're coming to Nebi Samuel. So perhaps Nebi Samuel isn't Ramah, where Shmuel was buried. So what was the path of his grave? Was it from Ramah to Kalkedon in Turkey to Istanbul? And then it's reported to being in Ramla. They moved it to Nebi Samuel, perhaps. In any event, from the time right after the Crusader period, is the Jewish tradition is that Shmuel and Nebi is buried in Nebi Samuel. In any event, for hundreds of years, Jews have been going and praying to God, going to Nebi Samuel and praying to God, asking Shmuel and Nebi to intervene with God so that their prayers will be answered. That alone should give Nebi Samuel a high level of holiness. But I have another idea. I want to do something really strange. I want to give a description of Shmuel and Nebi. And as I say here, even if Shmuel and Nebi is not where he was buried, and it's not the Mitzpah, maybe not, from the 3rd century, it's been associated with Samuel, perhaps because the site itself has similarities to Shmuel and his activities. Who was Shmuel? Nebi Samuel, let's go back to the concept. Nebi Samuel, it's the gate to Jerusalem. It is a vantage point. If you're coming up from the coast, Nebi Samuel is standing there. It's like the entrance to Jerusalem. The Brits called it the key. The key. I once heard the whole concept. In 1948, why did they want to conquer Nebi Samuel? Because they felt that Jerusalem, if you have Nebi Samuel, you can reach, you're overlooking the road from going from Ramallah. You have Jerusalem. You are controlling Jerusalem. Nebi Samuel is the key. Nebi Samuel is also the key going from Jerusalem to the north, to the south. Nebi Samuel overlooks it all. So Nebi Samuel is the gate to Jerusalem. It is the connection to Jerusalem. It's like the bridge to Jerusalem. That's the concept. Now, Shmuel and Nevi, what was the essence of Shmuel as a prophet judge? He was the last judge. The period of the judges is a period where there was no national unity. Each tribe was separate, and each was living under his own grapevine. Everyone is no unity. Shmuel and Nebi is equated as equal to Moses and Aaron together. On Friday nights, we say the 99th Psalm, and it says Shmuel, that he is compared to him. And he judged the people from Dan to Beersheba. In other words, from the north, Dan, all the way down to the south. Now, Shmuel and Nebi also appointed the first two kings. He appointed Shaul and also David. The appointment of the kings represents the concept of the unity of the 12 tribes, all are together under one king, the leader of all the nation. The eternal capital of the Jewish people for the last 3,000 years, Jerusalem had a non-Jewish enclave, and the Mishkan has not moved from Shiloh, and there's not a central unifying place to direct prayer. In the Talmud, it tells us, Rabbi Yehuda says that there were 3 mitzvot that were commanded to the Jewish people upon entering Eretz Israel. They are, number 1, to appoint a king. Number 2, to eliminate Amalek. And number 3, to build the temple. We can relate all 3 of those things were done by Shmuel in some sense. Number 1, he appointed the kings. Number 2, he told Shaul, King Shaul, that what he has to do is he has to fight against Amalek. And number 3, this is Amalek in the temple, and there's a whole, and Milchemet Amalek. And Shmuel, it tells us also that when David was running away from Saul, he met Shmuel at Na'ot Ramah, that's what it's called, and they talked about the plans for the temple. That's what it says in Yalkut Shimoni. They said, what is the connection between Na'ot with Ramah? They were sitting and discussing the beauty of the world, the plans for the temple. In other words, we can say that Shmuel was the gate to the unity of the Jewish people, capturing Jerusalem. King David captured Jerusalem, talked about the temple. In other words, with a comparison, we're getting close to the end. Comparison, Nebi Samuel, the hill, it overlooks the area from the seashore in the west to the desert. Now, what I'm trying to do, this is really strange. I'm trying to give it the concept that perhaps when you come to Nebi Samuel, the essence of the hill is just like the essence of Shmuel. It is fitting that Nebi Samuel should be related to Shmuel. It is fitting. Nebi Samuel is the bridge to Jerusalem. It's the bridge. It connects all of the country in some sense. Just like the Crusaders called it the Hill of the Joy, because they could finally see Jerusalem. 1917, the British related to as the key. That's Nebi Samuel. Nebi Samuel is the key to the country, key to Jerusalem, the center. It overlooks the area from the seashore in the west to the desert in the east. In a sense, it unites the country. The gate, it is the gate to Jerusalem, the strategic gate to the eternal capital of the Jewish people. It is the connection between the coast, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem. Also from the south, you can see Herodian, you can see the desert from there. You can see Jordan from there. Shmuel and Nebi, the last judge, the judge in a period, he is the connection between the time of the judges when there is no unity to the period of the kings when there is unity, King David. He appointed the first kings, which signify the unity of all the tribe. He was the bridge to unity, in a sense, the gate to Jerusalem and the gate to the temple. I think it's very fitting. I'm not going against any of the tradition, but I feel that when you come to Nebi Samuel, you can get the essence of Shmuel and Nebi, the essence of the bridge, the unity, the gate to the unity, just like Shmuel and Nebi was the gate to the continuation of the Jewish people, to the unity of the Jewish people. Jerusalem as the center, the eternal capital of the Jewish people. I think it's super fitting that Nebi Samuel is considered the place where we can feel Shmuel and Nebi. And that doesn't go, and I'm not going against the research, which talks about whether that's his gravesite or not his gravesite. It just feels that that is the essence. Nebi Samuel is the essence of Shmuel and Nebi. Thank you. You have questions? I'm sure you are. I don't know. Let's see if I can see any questions, if I can find them. Anybody's still out there? I don't know if anybody's still out there. Let's go back. Okay, any chats? One chat. Utshuvot haramata, b'ivrit. Bivrit? No, it's not in, we're not in Hebrew. I apologize. This was an English lecture. Any comments? Participants, 33 participants, no comments. It's been my pleasure. What else we have? Press pause recording. What else we got here? Chat. Okay. Who controls the site now? Okay, the site right now. So where do I think Shmuel was buried? Who controls the site? The site is controlled by Chevron Haganat Teva. It's controlled. It's a fascinating site because it's a site which actually relates. You have a mosque in it, and you have a synagogue in the bottom. Site. The only site that's compared to that would be Marat Machpelah, which is in Hebron. So we have, and there's never okay. Aramata. So at least he lived in Ramah. That's not a question. He lived in Ramah. The difficulty, what's going on right now, there's a down below in the bottom. There's a synagogue. The question is, if you want to go onto the roof to get the view is only open. It's not open 7 days a week. It's not open after 5 o'clock. When I used to bring people to the site, we used to go up to the top. In other words, we went up to the top. We went up to right up there. It wasn't closed in those days, in the late 80s. And then they sealed it. And if you went up to the top, the wind, which just almost took your hat away. Now, I was up there on Friday, went to the area again, and right up on the roof there. The roof is just spectacular. And it gets you a spectacular view. And the wind almost took my hat away again, but that's the concept. He returned Haramata. At least he lived there. He lived in Ramah. The question is, okay, no question about it. He lived in Ramah. Did he live in Ramah? Who knows? The concept is they're related to Ramah because of its name and also because of the hill. But maybe Nebi Samuel is Ramah. Who can tell? They haven't dug underneath it. It is open to the public. It's definitely open to the public. And there's the synagogue is open. And they ask your name, they write down your name, and then they check your temperature now, and then you can go straight in. They have to write down your name. That's about it. Okay? Anybody else? What's the best time to visit? Good question. I would go, I don't know. It's really sunny there. Go with a hat. And I apologize you didn't get to see me. And if you get a chance, if you want to go see the spring, do not go to the spring on Friday, because that's where many people use it as a ritual bath, as a mikveh. And if it's a woman, you will not get complimented for showing up there. But other than that, the site is impressive, super impressive. And I haven't dealt with the other concepts of Nebi Samuel. Nebi Samuel, you could talk there about the 48 war. You could talk about the 67 war. You could talk about Joshua with his son standing still. You could talk about Shlomo's King Solomon standing there looking down into the valley. Where's Aram? Aram is north of Jerusalem, going towards Ramallah in that area, going Kalandia, and then going north in that direction. But Nebi Samuel is a spectacular site in the sense you could talk about the Crusaders. You could talk about just looking at how they built and everything like that. You could talk. It's a spectacular site, and it's very, very impressive. Very impressive. Been my pleasure. Good evening. Okay, we got it. One more question. I see there's a question here. Do you need a tour guide to really appreciate stuff? I think you should. Well, first of all, there's a map there. You really do need a tour guide because you don't need a tour guide to go into the building but to get a feeling for you walk around the outside. There are signs there to tell you what you're looking at. So they put lots of signs there. I could show you some of the signs. I don't know if I'll show it down at the bottom here. They have signs. Where did I put them? Oh, way down. They have like signs all around the site. Just like, oh no, I don't have them. I lost them. Okay, I have it in my camera. They have signs all around, but you really can't get a feel for what you're looking at if you go with a tour guide and he has to prepare himself. But if you want to talk about the 48 war, you should also have a guide there. They'll talk about 1948, Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach, attempted to conquer the area, then conquer the Jerusalem road, and it was a terrible massacre. People were killed there. In 1917, there was a great war between the British and the Germans who were there. 1967, you could talk about 1967. You could talk about you could talk about Jerusalem. I've seen many evangelistic groups going there and just going onto the roof and just talking about everything, because it's a beautiful open spot, and it's very impressive. The view is very, very impressive there. And it's, I think, well, as I said before, one last thing I should really add. Okay. And this is another personal concept. My son was he was in Duvdevan, which is a special unit. Okay. And what he did when he did his last march, he actually went, they came into the flat area, and I still think about it right over here. They marched in this, where'd they go? Yeah, here we go. I'm going the wrong way. Boom, boom, boom. In that flat marching area, they came in, he did a 120-kilometer march. And then they came into Jerusalem. Came into Jerusalem, went to Nebi Samuel, and they did right over here. They did their induction, advanced training right over here, and they came right over here. And I'm thinking back, and I see my son, who's now a chassid, but in those days he was a really incredible soldier. He did a over 100-kilometer march, that's 60 miles. And they kept changing the commanders because the commanders didn't do it with them. And this is where, right over here, this is where they marched and they received their whatever, their button or whatever, to acknowledge that they were finally finished advanced training. They were admitted into Duvdevan, which is a special combat unit. We don't have to talk about it. One last question. Is another question? Oh, I answered that one. Okay. Been a pleasure. Good evening. Is it on? Well, 2. I'm going to leave. Okay.